Welcome to the Achieve Results Now podcast, the podcast that gives you immediate actions you can take to start seeing life-shifting results now. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Achieve Results Now podcast. This is Mark Cardone.
And Theron Feidt.
Look, I totally accidentally, I'm drinking coffee out of my Achieve Results Now mug.
Nice.
And I didn't grab it on purpose. It was just a total, hey, here we are. So this must
I feel bad. I don't have
must
mine.
Must be a great podcast. It's sign.
Going to be a great podcast. Absolutely. For sure.
And today, we're talking to our listeners today about, not only goals, but like achieving our goals and taking not massive action, of course, right? But I guess jump starting. I think that's a good word, is how to jumpstart achieving a new goal, a goal you're struggling with, anything like that, but how to really start seeing progress now.
Right. And talking about systems and taking action. And I think, not that we're going to talk a lot about it, but discouragement is a big factor when people aren't achieving goals. And then they look back and they're like, where did my month go? I didn't achieve anything, or where'd my day go, or my week go? And all of those things can happen very easily. And depending on the intensity of the discouragement, it could last way more than a day or two or a month, right? Yeah. And that's something that we all deal with. We all have bad days, but we really shouldn't have bad weeks, bad months, bad years. There's going to be certain things that come up, but what can we do to win anyways? Maybe it's an injury. What can you do instead? Let's say it's a bad injury that you really can't do anything physical for a while. What can you do mentally? Do you still have your eyes? Can you still read? Can you still listen? Those are things, and that's something I dealt with, as very recently. Yeah. I was laid up for a while, but I still was active, and I still achieved different things because I couldn't really be physical. So that's the mindset that we want to adopt.
Yeah.
Because without it, you just look back and you're like, then you're normal. Who wants to be normal?
I'm definitely not normal.
You're definitely not
for
normal.
Sure. I don't remember who said it, but the quote, "A bend in the road isn't the end of the road," always comes into my head, right?
Yeah, like
it's definitely a case where people struggle to achieve goals, without a question. Tony Robbins used to talk about the pressure cooker. I don't know if he was the originator, right?
Oh, yeah.
But, we get uncomfortable. We, start to, set goals and plans and all that stuff. But once we get to that point, the pressure kind of goes off and we lose our motivation to move.
Yes.
So I really think a lot of the reason why, and this is why I love this topic, a lot of the reason why people struggle over and over and over again is that cycle, right? It's that, the thermostat, when we're uncomfortable, the thermostat's really high. And then we start to make a little bit of movement, and then it regulates. And then we don't feel motivated anymore. And then we go through that cycle.
Yep.
But I think having a jumpstart plan, having a real kind of tactical thing you can do with a goal that you're struggling with to start to see that progress. Because I hear it too, people who say, this must just not be for me. I've tried it over and over again. It's just not for me. And then I hear people say, am I alone in this? Like, am I the only one who's struggling with this? And you're not. You never are.
Right.
Even people who have incredibly high levels of fitness struggle to maintain fitness, right? But it's really about systems, and I think that's what we're talking about here.
Yeah, and so we're going to talk about systems and plan, like you said, but also we're going to touch on the mindset that you should have that at least works for us, and really it's not just us. When we're talking about experience, we're also drawing from the thousands of people that we've worked with through the martial arts, but also through business. And certainly you have probably an even wider perspective than I do, because you've worked with the real estate business for many, many years. And so you see the people that don't have mindsets like they do in the martial arts.
Yeah.
And, it can be very difficult to deal with, because you're dealing with somebody that you're like, I don't understand why they're thinking this way. And so hopefully with this podcast, we're going to be able to hit all these different factors that something that comes up in your life that you're like, oh, okay, that's how I could handle it. I could do this or think this way.
Absolutely. And I mean, the first thing you need, like if you're listening to this and you haven't picked this up yet, the first thing you need, not one of the steps, because we're going to get to the steps, but the first
Yeah,
thing you need is a goal,
yeah,
right?
hmm,
Some of the people who tell me I'm just going to give up on this thing don't actually have a goal. They just have a kind of
right,
a thought for how life should be.
yes,
So I think going into this, and we have dozens of
yeah,
podcasts
oh yeah,
about goal setting, and go back and listen to some of the podcasts on goal setting. But as we're listening to this podcast specifically, think of one of those goals that you're struggling with, write it down, make it real, so that way as we go through these steps, you have something that you're actually physically working on.
right, right, and I think that can be very difficult for people, but then what we're going to talk about is the systems and the implementation and the
Yeah.
mindset. That's really where that gets tripped up. The goals are kind of the fun thing to do.
Yeah.
Once you get into it, it's like, oh yeah, and you feel good and you're excited about the possibility and you're motivated and all that's great. And you should do that. But then when it really comes down to it, that's really where the
So
rubber meets
we're
the, as they say.
we're yeah, it's where we run out of gas. Another was
Right.
that a boats run out of
It
gas.
could be a boat
Boat
reference.
analogies, I love it. Um, but so once you have that goal in mind, let's talk about this is the 1-7-30 system,
Yes.
right? And this is something that we use with people we work with, and just we use ourselves. But let's start with the first one, which is the one.
Right.
Okay, the one is what can I do, and I want to keep that sentence. What can I do, right?
Yep.
What can I do within 24 hours, within one day, right? What action can you take? Tony Robbins again always used to say, never leave the sight of a goal, the sight of setting a goal without taking some action
Right.
towards its attainment. So once you have that goal, don't wait until tomorrow to start
Right.
taking action.
Hmm.
What can you do inside of the next 24 hours?
A lot of that is creating momentum. That inertia to get things started can be very difficult. And it's easy to procrastinate. Most everyone does to a certain extent. And that's why Anthony Robbins talks about is do something, even if it's small. Your goal is whatever it is. Maybe you need to make a call. Maybe you need to write something down. Maybe you need to look to find a website for information. Even as simple as that, do that. So it doesn't have to be like as soon as you set your goal, you're out and going for it, but just do something small. And so that day could be a setup day.
Yeah,
Maybe you really don't achieve anything that anybody notices, but it's setting yourself up for success in the long term.
yeah. And I think where people fall short here, a lot of times is they'll sit down and they'll say, okay, here's my goal. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to sit down and I'm going to plan out my next 6 weeks worth of workouts, right? Or I'm going to
Right.
plan out, I'm going to, so, and what happens is you do that, but it doesn't really, you almost feel like, I think when I plan, I almost feel like I've already achieved the thing, so it
Yeah.
does, it
Yeah.
relieves the pressure. It makes me feel less
Right.
motivated. So sometimes if you're one of those people, sometimes sitting and just making out a whole plan
Right.
can be time consuming and it can make you feel less motivated.
Yeah.
So what you said, I think like calling people,
Hmm.
talking to people about, what you're going to do, uh, going on a website, getting information on, people to meet with, things like that.
Hmm.
I think that's a great step. But I think kind of sitting in solitude and just making plans,
Yeah.
it's important. Like you have to do it, but I don't think that should be your only step because I think
Right.
sometimes it can almost let the gas out.
Yeah. Like if you're an engineer, of course you're going to have detailed plans. You need to.
Yes.
You're going to
Hmm.
think through every step and every contingency, all that. But what we're talking about is regular life and achieving goals. Not to build a rocket ship to Mars, but
Right.
we're just talking about I want to lose weight or I want to make a better connection with this certain person, or maybe it's a bigger goal like a black belt or something along those lines, or I want to buy my first house, whatever it is. That's the goal. Okay, what can I do today? What can I do today to do that? And I think I always work best with having an outline.
Hmm.
These are the top three things that I want to accomplish today. and then how do I fit it in my day? So that way there's that rigid flexibility that we've talked about. And I think we did a podcast on rigid flexibility a
We
while ago.
did.
And that's really what it is, because things come up. Something, and I just shared with you earlier, I'll share a little bit of the details. So we're going over the weekend to visit my son. And our goal was to leave at 9 a.m. because it's a 3-hour drive. We wanted to get there early. It was his birthday, all of those things. Well, as I was getting ready in the morning, I cut my foot, and it wasn't just a little cut. Oh, that hurt. It was a big cut, blood all over. I called my wife down because it was pretty bad. I told her, I said, listen, if I die today, you better clean this kitchen even better, because there's going to be blood remnants all over this kitchen floor. So, anyways, it added a good 45 minutes to our morning, taking care of my foot. And then we had other issues and this and that. And so we didn't end up leaving until an hour and a half later. Now, we weren't like on a time clock. It wasn't like we had dinner reservations or anything like that. So we were able to have that rigid flexibility, but it didn't ruin my day. Now, it did hurt because I had to walk the rest of the day and wrap my foot. So that was uncomfortable, but I didn't let it ruin my day. I didn't say, well, we might as well forget it. I guess we won't see him on his birthday. We'll just FaceTime him instead. I got to keep my foot up. It was like, let's power through, let's power on, let's keep going. Now, I know that's like a simple, thing, but I think it's something that happens to all of us. Maybe not the foot, the cutting of the foot, but it could be something else that takes a day. But don't let it ruin your whole day. Don't let it ruin your plans. Don't let it stop your plans. You just have to make adjustments. That's all.
Yeah. Yeah. Life happens, right? And that's why I think, what can I do in 24 hours? What can I do in a day? It can, like you said, it can be something simple. Go out and buy some broccoli, right? You know what I mean? Something easy that puts your thing into motion, but make it something that, if life gets busy and life gets in the way, you can still get it done. Because I think
Right.
that's, like you said, that mindset of, oh, I have this and I have that. And,
Right.
like it's easy to make excuses because
Yes.
listen, when I tell people they're not alone in struggling to achieve their goals, they're also not alone in being too busy to work on them, right?
Right. Yeah,
That
for
is
sure.
everybody. So what can we do inside of 24 hours? Like I think that's that jumpstart motivator to get us going.
And before we move, I have one other point before
Yeah.
we move on to the next one is, let's say the day just was shot, and it was even more than, it was one thing after the other after another. Then you went and you had a car accident, nothing major, but enough to throw you off. Then you had this, then you had that. And we've had days like that, right? We've all had
Yeah.
days. Okay, there's tomorrow, right? So
Yep.
sometimes you do have to, it gets so bad that you have to scrap your plan or what you're going for that day. But don't let it affect the rest of the day, or the rest of the week. Just move on and say, okay, I have tomorrow, and then
Yep.
I'll just pack it in tomorrow.
Absolutely. And then once we have that 24-hour thing that we can do, what the next part we have to look at is our week, right? And we've talked about planning our weeks before
Right.
and, sitting down on Sunday and kind of mapping out our week. But one of the things I think that we need to make sure we make room for so we don't get stuck in that hamster wheel of routine is what can we do that week to move us
Right.
towards our goals? So
Mm-hmm.
we've got that. What can I do in 24 hours? But then what can I do this week that's going to make me feel on Saturday when I sit down or on Sunday when I sit down and go through my week that's going to make me feel like I am moving toward the results that I want.
And I like the same thing that I do with my day, I do with my week. This is what I want to accomplish this week. What are my top threes for this week? And hopefully my top threes for each day are leading to one of those top threes for the week. And so depending on those top threes I have for the week, that could be it could be one day worth for one of them, or it could be 2 or 3 days worth for one of them, and the other two are quick.
Yeah.
But I think again, you go by with the day. If you had a bad day yesterday, don't make today bad. Also,
Yep.
you should, if you have a bad day, that's fine. Everybody has a bad day, but it should not turn into a bad week. Right? You got to fight through that. You got to make a change, whether it's a mental change, a physical change, whatever it is. But those days shouldn't lead to bad weeks.
No. And I think when I look at the weeks, when I look at the weeks, I think there's two kinds of people. There's people who can be hyper specific in their actions, right? They can say, I want to go
Mm-hmm.
for a run 3 times a week, right?
Yeah.
3 times this week.
Mm-hmm.
But then there's other people who struggle with that, right? Because maybe they don't have the self-discipline, they don't have the schedule where they can kind of factor those
Hmm.
things in. And for those people, I say it's okay to be vague. It's okay to say I'm going to have 3 workouts this week
Right.
when you're starting out,
Hmm.
right? Because I would rather see somebody win with whatever they call a workout is for that day
Right.
than not do anything.
Hmm.
You know, if you get to that point in your day where you go, it's the end of the day, I haven't done what I wanted to do. I can throw 25 push-ups and a couple of squats in and call that a workout, right?
Right. Right.
I like the thought of people being a little more vague with their actions. I mean, it's great if you can be specific. You can say, "Look, I'm going to play pickup basketball with these two
Hmm.
friends 3 days
Right.
a week." If you have that, that's
Hmm.
great. But allow yourself, the vague plan here and there to get you moving.
Yeah. And I think also some people are way too easy on themselves, and but you can see those people, they're
Yeah,
lazy, they don't
for
have a
sure.
goal. But the people that are achievers, I think sometimes we're too hard on ourselves. We're not giving
Hmm.
ourselves enough grace. We had a bad day, we had a bad workout, we had a bad this, and then we're like, so disappointed in ourselves. Instead of saying, okay, you know what, I'm human. This happens. I had a bad workout. I'm going to make the next workout better. Or I missed this. It's a balance of having grace, but also pushing yourself.
Yeah.
You can certainly be too hard on yourself. You should be your biggest cheerleader without turning arrogant.
Yes.
That's that balance where you want to be humble, you want to show gratitude, but you also want to have confidence in yourself, knowing that you can do certain things, knowing that you can get things done without bragging about the things that you got done.
Yeah. Yeah. And
It's a
I
big.
mean, I think going to the things you got done. I think this is, going on to the third step. So we've talked about what we can do in 24 hours. We've talked about what we can do in the next week, in the next 7 days, and we've
Yep.
got that all laid out, right? But
Hmm.
now it becomes, what can I do this month, right? Like,
Yep.
what are the things I can do this month that are going to carry me toward my goal? And what I like about 30 days, I mean, I guess this works with years too, but I think it works really well with 30-day increments. Is at the beginning of the month, 30 days seems really far away, but at the end of the month, it's amazing how fast 30 days went by.
Right.
I feel like that is congruent through the whole world. Is when
Yes.
I start my month, I'm like, man, fresh new month. I have all this time. And then on the 30th, 31st, or 28th or 29th, depending on the month you're in,
Right.
I look back and I go, holy, where did the time go?
Right.
So I think it's great to use this 30-day time period to not only forecast what you can do, but also to take a minute to recap what results you actually achieved.
Which I think all of it leads to it, of course, right?
Yeah.
So if you take care of your days and you do your best you can on your days, then your weeks, you're going to have better weeks. And if you have better weeks, you're going to have a better month. And then if you have a better month, you're going to have a better year, etc. And it's really keeping that mindset, but also keeping your action focused. But it also goes back to what we started with, and what you mentioned is having a goal. You need to have your goal in mind,
Yeah.
so that way because the goals are your direction. What we're talking about is the system, the mindset, the physical things that you need to do on a daily, weekly, and monthly basis. But if your goal isn't there, or your goal changes all over the place, now it doesn't matter how great your system is if your target keeps moving,
Yeah.
or you don't know where your target is fuzzy. I think clarity is power. Well, I know it was a weekly wisdom that we just did, but
Yeah.
I'm sure we've done a podcast on that
For
probably
sure.
recently too. So
And
yes,
I, and I and I think that's, that 30-day mark, right? When I look at it and I say, I mean, if you looked at your week, right, and at the end of the week you went and looked at your, results towards your goal, it's going to be lackluster, and you're not
mm-hmm.
going to really know what worked and what didn't. I mean,
Sure.
if I take, if I'm brand new to martial arts and I take 1 week worth of classes and I look at my results, like, yeah, maybe those 2 or 3 classes, like maybe I sweat, I feel better about myself and those things.
Yeah.
But when I look at the physical results, you really need a month of
Right.
anything to know
Yeah.
if it's working or not, right?
Yeah.
And when you think about that, well, maybe I was doing this thing for my business for 30 days and it didn't create a result.
Right.
I wasted 30 days. But if you are checking and you course correct every 30 days to refine your plan,
Yeah.
after a year, you've course corrected 12 times. You should, at that point, or hopefully earlier,
Yeah.
be onto something that's working for you.
Right.
So I think that, what can I do in this 30 days to get to my result? And then also going at the end of that month and looking backward and saying, what results did I capture? Like
Yes.
what can I measure? What can I look at? What can I point to and say, this worked?
Right. Well, this all goes back to the podcast that we did a while ago, and I'll put it in the show notes. Bookend your day,
Yes.
and bookend your week, and bookend your month. So in business, if you're good at business, you're going to do, not only do a daily review and hopefully a weekly review, but you do a monthly review, and then a quarter, and then a year, and then you go through there in the forecast. So as a business owner, it's built into us to do this, but
Yeah.
the same thing should be applied to your life. So that way you're not just have one area of your life that you're exceeding with, but you have a balance of your life. How often do you see the person that is super successful, but then they have horrible relationships, or they're super successful, but they're really out of shape? The best life and where you're going to feel the happiest is really where you have a balance, that you're
Yeah.
balancing everything out. And does that mean that you might not be super, super high successful in one area? Possibly. But you may find that because you're balanced, you can be super successful in other areas. Or you may find that, the success, the money that I think is going to bring me happiness, money doesn't actually bring you happiness. It's the relationships in your life, the richness of your relationships that really give you happiness. That's really what people find out when they start balancing their life better.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so let's recap. Let's go through our
Okay.
steps. So I mean, obviously, first you have to have a goal. We didn't have that as a step, but make sure you have a goal in mind that you're working on. And then, moving on to step one, what can you do inside of 24 hours to really jumpstart your progress? What is that, one or two small things you can do to really start taking action today?
Right. And the second one is think about your week. So the 7 days. And even if you only work 5 days a week, you can accomplish a lot in 5 days. In fact, let's say you only work 4 days a week, but you killed it those 4 days. Well, that's a win. You're beyond the 50%. More days of the week were better than less days of the week. So this can work even in a small schedule.
Yeah, absolutely. And then looking at your 30 days, what can you do inside of 30 days to start seeing those results? And then also at the end of those 30 days, recapping backwards and seeing I can't talk today, what measurable results you can point at. And that wraps up this episode of the Achieve Results Now podcast. Thanks for listening, everybody. Please share this with somebody who wants to achieve results now. We'll see you on the next show.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening. Hop over to our website at www.achieveresultsnow.com to get your free copy of our book, Ignite Results, for specific daily actions to help you achieve results now. You can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/Achieve Results Now. Thanks for listening, commenting, and subscribing. Now get out there and achieve results now.